So let's go through, these are 5 things that Jesus told Swedenborg about heaven, that you can, according to Swedenborg, find it in the Bible, about the way it works that is different than the way people usually think about heaven.
Yes. Those differences are so important. Otherwise, why did, he didn't do all this effort to say the same thing everybody was already saying. So, and those differences are fascinating.
Here's what we've been getting wrong about heaven for, a couple thousand years. First of all, heaven is not a distant future state that you have to think about because you might go there someday. This is something that is right here around you all the time. So this is from Swedenborg's account in Divine Love and Wisdom, number 92. We cannot say that angels and spirits are in the ether or in the stars. They are right with us, united to our own spirits in feeling and thought. Each of us is a spirit. That is the source of our thinking and intending. This means that the spiritual world is right where we are, not distanced from us in the least. In short, as far as the deeper levels of our minds are concerned, we are all in that world, surrounded by angels and spirits there. We think because of the light of that world and love because of its warmth.
The only thing I would take issue about that is that I don't think that's 1 point. I think that's about 12 in there, isn't it?
That when I was reading that, I thought we're in trouble because there's a lot of ground covered there.
Yes.
The most striking,
amazing.
and what I would want you to comment on first is that he goes right to the psychological. If this is taking Jesus' statement that the kingdom of heaven is within you and really wringing all the truth out of that.
Sort of explaining how that actually works, how that's possible.
He's saying that heaven, not only is heaven's like around you, sure, we get that. It's in your mind. It's in how you think and how you feel.
I know there are people in this world today who think that the angels are in the stars, perhaps because of things that it says in the Bible about the heavens and so on, that they think they're literally in galaxies elsewhere. And so it does seem to be such an important point that Swedenborg makes. Oh, no, they're right. When you're suffering, you're in torment, you're lying in your bed late at night and you're going through something, it's right there. It's not, billions of light years away.
So much so that when you're lying in your bed and you're, what's going on, what's wrong, where are you, when you feel anything good, when you get the slightest bit of comfort or a thought occurs to you that alleviates some of your concern, that is directly heaven talking to you.
Yes.
And you are hearing that. And when you're sitting there alone in your bed, miserable, the things that are causing you misery, that's hell.
That's right.
Talking to your mind.
That's not coming out of your own brain. That's coming from somewhere else.
Well, that your own brain is, as much as we're sitting here being influenced by the room and each other physically, your spirit is in heaven or in the spiritual world right now, being influenced by what's around us. It's not far. It's also not irrelevant to your life. You might think, okay, whatever. Some weird person is gonna tell me about there's heaven and hell, and that's something there. But I've got my life today, and I've got these issues with my relationships, and I'm trying to find a sense of self-worth, and I'm trying to navigate my relationships to my peers, and I'm trying to recover from something difficult that happened to me. In those, everything you think and feel is connected to heaven and hell. All the psychological stuff you're trying to sort out, you cannot understand that or unlock that without understanding the influence of the spiritual world on you, of heaven on you. The kingdom of heaven is really within you.
There's a silly thought to bring in at this point, but I think it's in one of Woody Allen's movies, he says that the concept of heaven strikes him as buy now, pay later. No, says Swedenborg. No, it's right now. It is a transaction that's going on right now.
Okay, so let's expand on that, because the second thing that Jesus Christ wanted Swedenborg to tell all of us, according to Swedenborg, is that heaven, rather than being fundamentally a place in the afterlife, is a state of mind. It's a state of being. There's like the afterlife where there's heaven, but there's heaven there because of the heaven inside you. This is how he describes it.
Okay.
This is in Secrets of Heaven 3:6-3-4. People who are in correspondence, that is, people who love the Lord, have charity for their neighbor, and therefore believe, are in heaven as to their spirit, and in the world as to their body. Accordingly, they make common cause with angels, so they are also images of heaven.
There you go.
So this is, speaking of relevance, you can right now do heaven. You can be doing that.
Yes. It's so tempting to think that this is something that it's just about the afterlife, worry about it when you get there kind of thing. It is very different to be told that this is somewhere. It's a state that you can be in now. It's a state that you've already been in. It's a state you've experienced in your childhood. Very pronouncedly. Maybe you don't remember, but you were there. You know, the book of Revelation says, remember from where you've fallen. Well, we've all been there. And it's accessible to us all the time. I mean, it's something that's with us, and it's a state.
So why is Jesus, when he comes, sure, he makes a couple of cryptic statements about a future event happening. This is where a lot of people get the idea of the rapture and that sort of stuff.
Right.
Most of everything that comes out of his mouth is about how you live right now. The Sermon on the Mount.
That's right.
Okay, turn the other cheek, go 2 miles with it, the love one another as I have loved you. All of that is teachings about how to be a good person now. If heaven is something far away, why is he spending so much time on that right now?
Yeah, and it reminds me of those parables in the New Testament. There's one where the master, whoever it is going away to a far place, and all the servants are waiting, and they don't know when he's going to come back. And so there's a couple of options. If the servants are kind of obediently waiting and they don't know when he's returning, but they're doing the right thing, that's okay. But if they're drunken and beating each other and all this, that's bad. Well, that's very much about how you're living now in the apparent absence of the Lord, right? It's not about a someday situation. It's about your behavior right now.
Why would we have to sit here and slog through 86 and a half years, or whatever the average life expectancy is in whatever part of the world you're in, of just some pre-prep nothingness when the real stuff is happening in heaven?
Right. And why do some people get to go when they're 6 months old and some have to wait till they're 101 or something? And yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Heaven is something you can be doing right now. And what are the ingredients to it? Love the Lord, have charity for their neighbor, and therefore believe. So the belief in the existence of God, that Jesus is God among us, that actually isn't the first thing. The first thing is loving the Lord, who is Jesus, but loving the Lord is much more about doing what the Lord asks. Famously, when Jesus is talking to, is it Peter? When he says, do you love me?
Yes.
And Peter says, yeah, man, I love you. This is his disciple. I'm paraphrasing just a little. Yeah, man, I love you. Feed my sheep. And again, he's not talking about my sheep in the field over there by the hill. He's talking about human beings. Feed my sheep. And then he asks him again, do you love me? I just said that. Yes, I love you. Feed my lambs. And then he asks him again, do you love me? And he says, you know that I love you. Feed my sheep. So right there, he's saying, if you love me, loving me doesn't consist in you talk about me a lot. You got a picture of me.
You've got a picture of me on the wall.
It's fine to have that stuff, but he's saying, if you love me, go out and feed my sheep, which means love your fellow human beings. So when that is what's driving the engine, then yeah, that is what believing in Jesus is, because you're going to live in your life based on it. Doing those things, okay, you're doing that. You're loving your neighbor. You're the kind of person everyone wants to be around because they can trust you and because you're kind and it doesn't mean you never have to make distinctions or something, but that's what heaven is. That you can bring a little heaven into earth in your own life, and you can do it right now. That's what we're talking about. Difference number 3 between what we think about heaven and what is actually going on in heaven, according to Jesus via Swedenborg. Heaven is not a reward for good behavior.
What?
I know. It's actually,
Oh, then I've been wasting my time.
it's like, okay, can I get my last 30 years of my life back, please? It is actually, it's not a reward. It's not like God was watching you and saying, was that good? That was good enough. Now here's this money. But it is a state of accepting what's good from God. This is how Swedenborg describes it in his book, Heaven and Hell. It can never be said that heaven is outside anyone. It is within, because every angel accepts the heaven that is outside in keeping with the heaven that is within. We can see then how mistaken people are who think that getting into heaven is simply a matter of being taken up among the angels, regardless of the quality of their inner life, who believe that heaven is granted merely because of the Lord's mercy. On the contrary, unless heaven is within an individual, nothing of that heaven that is outside flows in and is accepted.
I think it was a very prominent idea, a very understandable idea, that you just go there. You just go to heaven. So after you die, just, well, which way is heaven? Okay, and you just go there, and then it'll be great for you. And Swedenborg has so many stories of how not great it is for people who aren't prepared, or people who have unheavenly goals of the type we were talking about a moment ago. They have trouble breathing. They go through agonies and so on. It's not enough to be there. You have to have that heaven within, and then that can carry you into that world and make that delightful and pleasurable for you. But without that, again, these all seem to be pointing in the same uncomfortable direction.
Does Jesus Christ love everybody? Are we or are we not his children? And when Swedenborg encountered him, he was like smiling down at him. If he has blanket happiness for anyone sitting in his back pocket, that's heaven. And that if you just doesn't matter who you are, what you're doing, if he gives it to you, you'll be happy. He should not be holding that back if he loves everyone. Why would he just sit there with it?
Right.
That makes him this weird punitive sort of monster while all of us are suffering needlessly, because he could just heaven all of us. But if you understand that heaven is a particular state of being, and it is a state in which this is the reason why Jesus is sitting there commanding everybody, come on, everybody, love each other. Heaven is a state in which you love people and want to do them good and enjoy doing what is good. The joy in that is what heaven is. And that if you go be around heaven, let's say you're in the afterlife and your spirit is free of your body, but your spirit is full of these impulses to dominate and use and manipulate and harm people,
deceive and whatever. Yes, right.
For that's what's fun for you, and that's what you've been doing, and you go into a place where everyone cares for everyone, and there is no hierarchy and showing things up and everything. That's not what you're gonna love. That's not gonna be great for you. So you're gonna hate that. So what God is trying to do throughout everybody's life is what he was doing with Swedenborg before, is trying to get all that unheaven out of you so that you can let the heaven in.
And he talks, I love that passage where he talks about because we can easily get into that of thinking, I'll do this good thing and I'll get a reward. I'll be thanked, or I'll be, you'll get a little sugar of some kind for doing the good thing. And he says at some point, your reward for doing good things is that you were able to do it and you did it. That's your reward. That is your reward. You're able to do it. You did it. It's such a different sense of reward. And it's not a reward that comes later. And it's not a reward that's dependent on whether other people happen to recognize or notice what you did or value it. Swedenborg himself is no longer working on that reward system. It's not like public opinion is voting, yes, I got upvoted. Oh, good. I'll keep going. No, it's something else. You had the ability to do it. You did it. That's your reward right there.
The difference between heaven and hell is illustrated by a scenario in which there's a kid who is in danger because there's some flooding, and you see that kid that they've started to get swept up in some water. They're going to get swept down the river. It's not your kid; it's somebody else's kid. Heaven is, oh no, this I got to stop this. You run over there and you jump in the water and you're able to grab the kid and you swim them to shore, and everybody comes around, and what you're feeling is, oh, I'm so glad they're okay. Like,
Yes.
thank God they're okay. And you see them reunited with their family, and you're so glad that everything is okay. And if somebody came up to you and said, wow, this is so great. You're so great for doing that. You would say like, oh, why are you even bringing that up? That is so not the headline right now. Is that this kid is going to be alive and they're going to be okay. Yeah. And this is not some Pollyanna thing that never happens. That happens all the time. All the time. When people jump in, and we mentioned this on a previous podcast, when people jump in and rescue someone in a situation like that, they do not come out the other side saying, look at what I did. They say, anybody would have done that.
Anybody would have done the same thing.
I'm not that special. They're just glad that it happened. I don't even know what came over me. They're just glad that it happened.
Yeah.
That's heaven. Hell would be, you're sitting there and you're like, I don't know if I really want to save that kid, but if I did, I would probably be on the cover of the newspaper, so I'll go and do it. And if nobody afterwards came up to you and said, wow, look what you did, then you wouldn't be, that's hell.
No, then yeah.
So heaven is the joy you feel in rescuing the person, the joy you feel in understanding that they're going to live the rest of their life with their family and everything. And so that's a dramatic example, but that you're coming across that all the time.
Yeah.
Heaven is the joy in knowing you did something good.
Yeah.
That's what the kingdom of heaven is. It's not the only joy you ever experience, but that's like the foundation of what heaven is. So it's not a reward. It has its own reward inside of it.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. The fourth difference between what people think heaven is and what it actually is that heaven is work. It's not idleness. Heaven is not, I don't have to work anymore. And heaven is also not, I worship God all the time.
Now, you promised me it was going to be rest from labors. You said that. You said rest from labors. You promised I was going to get to rest.
Okay, let me see what Swedenborg's... I know, this is like bait and switch here.
I know.
This is from Swedenborg's Married Love, number 5. Heavenly joy is the pleasure of doing something that is useful to yourself and to others. We were just saying that. And the pleasure of usefulness gets its essence from love and its outward expression from wisdom. The pleasures of usefulness that grow out of love through wisdom is the soul and life of all heavenly joys. But if that soul and life are missing, the accompanying joys become not joyful, but incidental at first, then trivial, and finally dreary and troublesome.
That's right, and that's in the context of a whole series of experiences of people who thought they knew what heaven was going to be for them, and then they get to experience it, and it's not heavenly. It doesn't sustain them. And I think what the Bible means when it says you'll have rest from your labors is that labors are not that you do work that you love doing. Anybody who's had that experience, and not everybody gets to have that experience all the time, but anybody who's had that experience knows that that's not work. I mean, I'd keep doing it if you never paid me again, kind of thing. Like it doesn't feel like work. It's not a strain. It's not a burden. It's like, oh, I hate this, but I'll keep going. The labor is that's meant in that biblical passage is all that temptation, the spiritual crisis, the difficulty of wrestling with your own lower self and all that. Those labors thankfully come to an end at some point. And then that's the beginning of work, in effect, without labor. You don't even call it work anymore because it's what you think about when you're going to sleep. It's what you think about first thing in the morning. Can't wait to do it again.
Yeah, it's got accompanying joys. You still do all the things that make so well-rounded human life.
Yep.
But what it's based on, I mean, the most restful state that you can be in as a human being is when you're doing something for a cause bigger than yourself, and you believe in this cause and you love it and you want to contribute so much so that you would do whatever it takes. You love the people that you're doing it with, that the teammates that you're with, you respect them, you admire them, you want to do well for their sake, and you love the impact on the world.
Yep.
You believe in the good work that we're doing, you gain satisfaction from the impact it's having. That's the most restful state you can be in. And that is what you build. That's what heaven is when all those things align. And then it's like, yeah, this is peace. It doesn't matter. Yes, if you've had like a grueling, horrible, drudgery-filled work life where people have been working you for poor pay and they're not respecting you, yeah, it could be that you need to take months and months, maybe years off to recover. But ultimately, the human spirit wants to be useful.
Yeah.
People sometimes when they're getting older and they don't have the mobility and things, they feel distressed because they don't want to be a burden on people. They want to be helping still. There's something in us that wants to be doing something that helps. That urge comes from our innate knowledge of what heaven actually is.
Yeah, it's a satisfaction. And I like eating food as much as anybody. I think I'm quite oriented to food. And yet there are states that I'll get into when I'm doing research, especially research on Swedenborg, like something that I think nobody's discovered before.
Yeah.
I forget to eat. And time just flies. Like, what? It's what time? I'm sorry. I didn't even know what was happening because I'm so into it. I just don't want it to stop. I'm not in that state all the time.
Yeah.
But it's great to have that experience. And in general, even if it's something really, really difficult or costly or something like that, but you believe in the cause and you do it, and then you reach these certain milestones, it's so immensely satisfying. It's different than just sort of scratching earthly or bodily itches, so to speak, or you know what I mean, just kind of addictions or what have you. They don't satisfy in the same way, in the way that getting something accomplished. We're all kind of hardwired for that, I think.
The last distinction between what heaven actually is and what we think it is that heaven is not static. You continue to grow and develop in heaven and continue to become better and better forever.
But you said it was just like playing the harp or something. Like, how good can you get?
Yeah. Well, you could do like, what's that, like arpeggio number 5? You can play Heaven and Hell 155. Angels are not constantly in the same state as to love, and consequently, they are not in the same state as to wisdom. For all the wisdom they have is from their love and in proportion to it. Sometimes they are in a state of intense love, sometimes in a state of love that is not intense. The phases follow each other with constant variety. And then from Heaven and Hell 273, angels are constantly being perfected in wisdom, but they still cannot to eternity be so perfected that there is any ratio between their wisdom and the Lord's divine wisdom. For the Lord's divine wisdom is infinite, and the angels is finite, and there is no ratio between the infinite and the finite. We were saying Swedenborg is so rational and organized that some people might say, what is that? They're just talking about it. But that's the mechanics of how it works.
Yeah.
He's just trying to say life remains dynamic. You know how your entire life you have been growing and changing and adapting, and that keeps going.
Yeah, that's right. I love the way that life is set up. I've really come to appreciate it, where it seems to be set up for everybody at every age, at every ability. There's opportunities for little incremental growth, to just do a little better at something than you did a few days ago or a few months ago, and to notice a little, I'm getting better. On the weekend, I went and saw one of my granddaughters playing soccer, and it's fun to see. She's in 3rd grade, and they're all out there on the field. And I go to a few other games. You can see they're getting a little better. She scored 2 goals in this last game, and they're getting a little better. It's fun to see that incremental growth. And wherever you are, some people's situations like ridiculously good. They have amazing physical health or whatever it is, or their brain works phenomenally, and somebody else really struggles or whatever it is. But still, for everybody, there's something that would be a few inches forward where you are. And that incremental growth is there's a little quiet satisfaction in getting a little better at something, and it doesn't stop. I mean, aging, you lose abilities, or there's other things that go along with that. And yet there's still ways in which you can see, but I didn't get quite as upset about this as I did last time. Or I handled this a little better. And you see that little growth. And I think that's a little taste of eternity. That's what sustains us through eternity. And it's not just playing the harp. Swedenborg says that's another correspondence, you know.
Right.
That, yeah.
That's not what heaven consists in.
No.